We are here with Nancy Wilds, who is 96 years old and has led an amazing life here in Aiken. So we're here to learn a little bit more about that, Nancy. Now, you were born in Arkansas, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. How did you end up in Aiken?
I had a wonderful twin brother who was a great scholar, and he attended Yale. And I went up to see him several times and met one of his very good friends who was in his class.
Mm-hmm.
And later, he came to see me. I think I was in Memphis at that time. And then once I went to his house for a weekend to meet his family. And then we got married. And he was in medical school. And when he became a doctor, we lived in New Orleans while he was doing his residency. And ultimately, we moved to his home, which is Aiken, South Carolina. And his family was part of the winter colony. And their home was Rose Hill. And Leigh and I lived in the guest house at Rose Hill for many years while he practiced medicine. And I did various kinds of artwork and had 3 children. So they all love Aiken. They've grown up and gotten educated and are all over the place, but they're not here. But anyway, the Phelps family lived at Rose Hill, which was a winter colony home on a cold block of grounds, and it had a big stable, which was no longer in use. And so his Aunt Claudia Lee Phelps let us have it, and we started the art center there.
Ah.
And that's where the town got interested in art. And it later became the art department for USCA.
Oh.
And then, of course, USCA built their own building. And then it has been used now since that Claudia died. The house has been a restaurant and kind of a hotel, and the stables have been restaurants. And they have all kinds of parties and meals down there. I knew her when she was very old, and she was very refined, and we were all kind of in awe of her. But she was really very friendly to me, and she told me all about Rose Hill, and I loved it. And so I was happy when Aunt Claudia suggested that Leigh and I should live in the guest house. Mm-hmm. And that's where my children grew up. And they had all of Rose Hill to play in. So they loved it dearly.
And what was Aunt Claudia like?
She was fun, and she was quite tall, and had been interested in horses all her life, and had ridden on the drag. Mm-hmm. And that's why they had the big stable. And when she was not using it for a stable, it was just an empty building, and my children played in it. And that's where we started the art center, which lasted about 12 or 15 years there. Well, Aiken was a delightful town. It didn't have any art activities at all. And somehow we decided, a few of my friends and I, that we could start an art center and teach people art and have art shows and things. So that's what we did. And there was a big 3-car garage plus the stable and lots of space to have parties and art shows and things. And it went on for many years until USCA came to Aiken. And they had their own art class there. They started their art at Rose Hill and later built their own art place in the university. And after that, it hasn't been used for much, except my son, as a teenager, had a band. They played down there and they had dances.
Back to the Phelps family a little bit. Aunt Claudia never got married.
No, she never married. And of course, her mother died quite a few years while Aunt Claudia was alive.
Mm-hmm.
And she loved having my children there because for Christmas Eve and various things, birthday parties, she always enjoyed an entertainment.
Okay.
And when I took my children to live in England for a year, she and Lee's mother came over to see us in England.
Oh.
We had a good time there. So I was very fond of Aunt Claudia.
Yeah. Now, she had a nickname, as I recall.
I can't remember now who started calling her Bill. She wanted to be William. Who's the great strong William?
William the Conqueror.
I think it was William the Conqueror. That's where she got the idea of being William. And then they called her Bill.
Why did she want a boy's name? Why did she want a man's name?
I have no idea. I don't know. She was tall, very attractive,
Mm-hmm.
and never married. And she just liked a lot of people. She liked outdoor sports.
Okay. What was it like being part of the winter colony for you?
I can't remember much about it. I knew almost everyone in the winter colony because they were friends of my mother-in-law, Eleanor Phelps, and Aunt Claudia Phelps, her older sister. So I knew them all, and we always went to all the horse races.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the winter colony is no longer there, but the big houses are.
Yeah.
And I like to see them.
Yeah, big houses are great. So you told us a little bit about starting the art center. Were there other people involved in starting the art center?
I had a good friend who was an artist named Pat Kelker,
Mm-hmm.
and she and I together started the art center because Aiken had no art schools of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had classes for people. Some were young high schoolers and the rest were mature people.
Mm-hmm.
But every year we had one party called An Evening of Wine and Roses and had an art show. And all our students showed their work and sold some. And it was a lovely party with music and dancing at the art center, which is all behind Rose Hill itself.
Now, the art center there started, I think, in about 1971 or so.
Something like that, yeah.
When did it move downtown?
Rose Hill became a little bit unsafe as when it was empty, when the whole Phelps family had died. There were too many break-ins and people that had showed up walking around and we didn't know who they were.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was time to get the art center somewhere else. And it moved several times, and it's now downtown.
Okay, I didn't know it moved several times. So.
Well, we tried different things. But it's better downtown because it's a lively place, good parking,
Mm-hmm.
and it's safe in daytime and night too. So it's a perfectly independent organization now.
Tell me about the gardens at Rose Hill.
Well, the gardens had been made many, many years before I came along, and they continued to maintain them, which is amazing. You can get grass cut, but when it comes to transplanting things, that's complicated. However, they kept it in good shape, and they were so well established that they didn't need a lot of new planting, things like that. They just maintained what they had.
Okay.
And we had the Evening of Wine and Roses once a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then for a few of the last years, we had a Christmas dinner in the main house.
What was entertaining like at Rose Hill? I'm sure the Phelps threw parties and such, what would a party there be like?
Well, the evening of Wine and Roses was a big party, and we usually had an orchestra, and it was in all of the stables, and refreshments, and of course an art show, so that people could visit Rose Hill and see the art, hear the music. It began first with just walk around refreshments, and then later we had a few dinner parties.
So tell me about that move. You did move out to the country to one of the oldest houses in Aiken County.
It was the oldest house, perhaps in South Carolina. And I lived in it for many, many years. And it had a stable, which I used for an art thing. Then I built a whole new house that was easier and safer, easy to lock up, easy to cool. It was great. So I lived there for many years and finally decided to move back into Aiken because my children were grown and I was alone. Didn't want to be out in the country. And so I moved to this house.
How long did you live there?
Probably 15 or 16
A long
years.
time.
Yeah.
Now, while you were living there, I think you helped put together the National Register nomination for the place, didn't you?
Yes, while I was living there, a number of people in Aiken became disturbed by the fact that there were no ways to look at the oldest houses in Aiken and the most beautiful ones in Aiken and sort of catalog them. And we wanted also at that time to control some bad traffic problems that we had. And there was no one to protect anything. And so we started the Historic Aiken Foundation. And I was the second president, I think. And that is what has helped so much. They have tours once or twice a year of all the historic homes in Aiken, and people love to go.
They certainly do.
Some people wanted to broaden Chesterfield and cut, I don't know what buildings they wanted to destroy, but somebody called me early one morning and said, help, the bulldozers are here. And they're getting ready to split buildings and tear them down on Chesterfield. And so I drove over there, and there was a man in a big, I don't know, earth moving thing. And I walked toward him, and luckily he stopped and climbed down and said, what are you doing? And I said, you must not continue to destroy the street. And he left. And that day, I called several people and said they're tearing down Chesterfield. And at that time, there was no city council involvement. Whoever owned buildings there was having it done. And so we put the word out that we had to go to city council. And there was a meeting about a day or two later that we all went to. And we stopped that project. And then we got busy and built up our board and our membership until they listened to us when they needed to be talked to a little bit. And we did.
Yes. Well, that was very successful then, and you had a lot of successes after that. I think Historic Aiken Foundation helped with saving the Wilcox as well.
Yes. The Historic Aiken Foundation has done more in preservation because the people are willing to help and contribute and go to meetings if somebody stirs them up a little bit. And we're the ones who've got our citizenry interested in preservation.
Yeah.
And they've done a lot of good.
Well, I think they have, and they're trying to continue your tradition of that. So you've started something. Um,
Well, it's interesting that people may feel strongly that something should be preserved, but they don't know how to do it. And so you have to get some more people. You have to have a number of people working with you. You can't go all by yourself because that's what persuades uh, people to listen to you is when you represent a lot of people. And that's what we've done.
when you all went to the city council, how did the city council respond? Or how did they react? Were they surprised?
They have always been extremely courteous and interested in what we have to say and are willing to bend their plans a little bit to cooperate with us. It's reassuring that city council likes historic Aiken. And a very funny thing happened when I had a bad fall and been in the hospital and all. And there was a meeting at city council, and they wanted to talk about saving downtown with a big parking garage and all these changes. And I went to it, and there was a table kind of in the middle of the room, and I was standing close to it. And then it was a full house. I don't know how many people were there. And I made my speech and, and showed them that they were making a mistake by not listening to people and considering things. That's when they wanted to build not only the parking deck, but they had other things they wanted to put, like a conference center. Well, there are plenty of church places and schools to have a conference. We don't need one. And so I told the city that I felt that they were changing the quality of Aiken and the way that the things that people enjoy so much here. Anyway, after I finished my speech, they used the table that I was standing by and put all the refreshments out, and suddenly there were flowers there. And it turned out it was a party for me. And here I just told them off. So that was really funny.
Well,
But it did some good because the people who get interested in growing the business district or bringing in more commerce aren't thinking about the quality of the town, just how crowded and busy can we make it. And it takes a few people who live there and like the quiet and the beauty to go and remind them. So that's what we did.
well, to follow up on that, you've lived here since I think 1956. So you've lived in Aiken for almost 70 years. What kind of changes have you seen from when you first came here with your husband to now?
Well, the biggest change that people really don't recognize is that now, spread it out from our downtown district, our commercial district, we have everything we want in every direction. There are more malls and places to buy things. You can buy anything from a set of earrings to a tractor somewhere in Aiken. It's crowded with business. And it's wonderful because it's scattered instead of being all in one downtown district. So wherever you are in Aiken, you can find a restaurant, or you can find a Food Lion, or a Walmart, or whatever you want. Everything you need is in every direction. And not long ago, I was driving toward Augusta. I don't know where I was or what I was doing, but I came across the biggest condominium I've ever seen. I never saw anything like it. And it was a school afternoon. It was about 3 o'clock. And there was a line of cars about 2 blocks long, people picking up children from a school that I didn't even know was there. So people don't realize that we have the growth and the money. It's a profitable town. It's a successful town. And it's really safe. Most people are polite, kind, and honest. So it's a delightful place to live, but it doesn't have to get any bigger. And when I said we've got to grow the economy's fine. So we should just enjoy what we have. I know how I feel to mine because I have 3 lively children. Many people played golf. Many people went on the Aiken Drag, which was a weekly event when they gathered in one place. And then they had hunting dogs, and they had, I don't know how many riders going up to lead the dogs in. And they had prepared a trail with little bits of meat or some kind of something you spray on that smells like meat. And they went through Hitchcock Woods and spread this all around, and then started the hounds and people who took care of the hounds. I was one of them. And
Wait, you were one of the people who took care of the hounds?
yeah, riding with them,
you were riding,
leading
okay.
about 8 hounds, and who were racing along, following this trail that had been scented up for them.
Yeah.
And then they didn't kill any foxes because there wasn't anything to kill. But anyway, and then they all stopped and celebrated a little bit on the way after it was over.
When you say celebrated, what did they do and where?
I had some refreshments and they just talked to each other.
Okay.
Most of them were still sitting on horses, and some were walking around with beer or something. Had a little party after the hunt.
So, okay. So they did that. Did they get together other times?
No, the winter colony people were all on the hunt, and also many, many Aikenites. So the horses were kept in many different stables. They all had to get ready to go and get together, go into Hitchcock Woods at a certain place, and then they started the hunt.
Like, did they get together for dinners sometimes?
Not in an organized way.
Okay.
The winter colony, they all went around to see each other.
Would they dress up for dinner, or was it casual living?
I think many of them, the men had on white collar, and the ladies had on beautiful dresses. But for the outdoor activities, they all just wore comfortable clothes.
Yeah. So did you get to dress up a lot?
Yeah, I got to dress up a lot. We had a wonderful life here, and my children all loved the schools. The youngest one, went to the day school, and Alex went to Aiken Prep. Ellen, I think, went to St. Mary's for a few times, and then she went to the Phlebotic Club a few times.
Okay.
I can't remember her other schools, but they all had a good time in Aiken.
It was an unusual time in Aiken when you came, because just 5 years earlier was when the Savannah River site had opened.
Yes.
And so it went from a sleepy southern town to having all these construction workers and scientists and engineers. Did you see a lot of that?
Yes. And that did a wonderful thing for Aiken, because all of the men that worked at the Savannah River site were highly educated. Well, so were their wives. And they wanted good schools for their children. And so it raised the number of schools, and the fact that the parents expected excellent teaching. And so we have big schools here. the Aiken Day School. My daughter Stephanie went to that. Aiken Prep lasted a long, long time in its old school. And then St. Mary's and St. Mary's Church uh, grew and got another new building. And then Mead Hall, the Episcopal School. And so we have big, well-built schools, and we had a number of fine teachers.
Yeah.
Yes, they had to have more houses for more people, but they were brick and they were all in groups. You know, there'd be a new neighborhood with all Savannah Riverside people in it. And so the schools grew and they got more and more money. And children had public schools or private schools, whichever they chose.
Okay.
And so the Savannah Riverside really was a startup for Aiken today. Well, the parents were educated.
Mm-hmm.
An educated man wants to be married to an educated woman, and
Yeah.
they want educated children.
Sure.
So the parents got more involved in school projects.
Okay.
And they had many, many children, and quite a few of them still live here. I always like to run into people that I remember from way back.
Yeah.
And the schools were beautiful.
Do you remember any notable people from back then? One name that I know I always hear about is Eulalie Sally. Did you ever know her?
Yes.
Yeah. So what was she like?
She seemed to be, we thought she was important. She was busy. She must, I don't know if she was in the real estate business. I think she was. And her son, Julian Sally, was Aiken's leading lawyer for long.
Okay.
And his wife was Helen Sally. They went to the Episcopal Church, as I did.
Yeah.
And were highly well known and respected here.
Okay.
They made a they had a big impact. And one of the things I remember is that they began having open houses certain times a year for people to visit.
To visit where?
Some were winter houses, some were just houses like Rose Hill, and they would be open for a day, and people could visit them. And they did that more and more. And also houses were being built at a great clip at that time. And we had more greenhouses and people who could design gardens. And everything was sort of stimulated for the new houses to be as beautiful as the old houses.
Okay.
And it happened.
Okay.
They're lovely still.
So you think having those open houses inspired other people?
I think so. I think people, it doesn't make them go out and build a new house, but it makes them appreciate the qualities of a beautiful house. It stimulates them to think about it.
Yeah.
And have big, beautiful parties with the men all dressed up in coat and tie, dressed up.
You had a great friend, Skipper Perry. Do you remember Skipper?
Yes, I do.
And I remember meeting him, a few times before he passed away. Tell me about Skipper.
I always respected him. He was always an outstanding leader and was on city council and was interested in the same things that I was and many others. He was one we could count on to help us protect an area that was about to get enlarged and paved and messed up for all time. Skipper was always a help. My friend Catherine Morgan was wonderful. And, I couldn't go back to all those people. It's been so long. But we always had a full house when we knew we were taking something to city council.
Mhm.
We could just make a few telephone calls and get people to come.
Yeah.
And most of them said nothing, but they just backed us up.
I know you became fascinated with even stained glass when you were young, but how did you evolve as an artist?
I told my parents I wanted to be an artist, and they said, that's fine. First, you got a college degree. And so I did. I graduated from the University of Chicago. They said, now you can go to art school. So I went to the Ringling School in Sarasota, Florida. Met some wonderful young people. I can hardly remember them now. And that's based on the fact that when I was probably 14 years old, and a Presbyterian, at that time, a neighbor friend invited me and my twin brother to go to the Trinity Cathedral, Episcopal Cathedral, for a Lent service. And we went on a cloudy day, and his mother took us to the cathedral, and we went in, and that's the first time I saw stained glass windows, a huge cathedral vault. I was so thrilled. And then they had the service with the procession and the cross and the flags and everything. And it was a beautiful service, and I was so thrilled. I went to the Presbyterian church with my parents, and I thought it was all right. But after I saw that, on the way home, now when we got home, my mother said, well, how did you like the service? And I said, it was so beautiful, and I'm going to be an Episcopalian. And she thought, now we're going to have to. She said, you can be anything you like when you grow up. But right now we're Presbyterians. That's where you're going to go. So I did. And then when I was in high school, since the Episcopal Cathedral was 2 blocks from the Presbyterian church, they were willing to drop me off at the cathedral and then go to Presbyterian. Then they'd pick me up afterwards. And when I was a freshman in college, I was confirmed as an Episcopalian. And it was the art that made me so thrilled, mostly stained glass. But then the service with the kneeling and the crossing and all that kind of thing. And so I loved the beauty, and the services are wonderful. So that's why I switched churches and became, after I had finished college, I went to art school, a wonderful one in Memphis, which was the biggest stained glass studio anywhere. And I stayed there long enough to become the director.
Oh, really?
And then after that, I married, and we had 3 little children. And I kept working in stained glass all that I could during that time. And when they grew up, I was free to do it all the time. So I've been in glass for that many years.
A long time.
And unfortunately, today, there's almost no stained glass being made.
Really?
It is too slow. You know, cutting each little piece, then you use a filter, sand filter, and cut some of the colors off. And then you paint on it, and then you fire it. It'll kill, and then you take it down and put a special gold on it and fire it again. Glass it's very slow, and it takes a long time to do it. But you can make almost anything out of glass. It's so beautiful. And so I've done that since, 1955 probably.
Wow.
And just have done it. And these last windows, this is my swan song. Well, I learned a lot about religion. You know, people don't realize how deep it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the deepest concept in religion, this is funny really, comes from the mother. Because everybody starts as a little baby that needs a mother. Because it can't eat if the mother isn't there to feed it. And so the mother principle is the strongest one there is for protection, love, can sing to you a little lullaby, play with you, dress you up, feed you ice cream. You need the mother first. And that's the strongest motivation in religion because we all need help and protection all the time. It's the idea that the mother's always there to lift it up and do it like this, you know. And that's the strongest feeling that we have is that there is help and love available to us if we can just get it. That's the first thing. And the second thing, that came to the earliest pagans, the idea of the mother, because a baby won't live a week without one. And the second one that's very, very important is barter or trade-offs. The people living in pagan communities, when they needed something, if one man had killed more than animals that his family could eat before they go bad, because they didn't have any ice, refrigeration, anything to take care of the food. And one man has too much in the way of animals, and another man has some kind of fruit he's found or something they can trade.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be equal on both sides. It has to be fair. But when they got in terrible trouble, and like an unfriendly tribe coming in on trying to take their property away from them, they needed more help than they could get. Nobody had anything to help them. So they had the idea that there was something really powerful up in the sky, something looking down at them. He's up there, we're down here. And if you can ask that one to take care of you, then he will. But you have to give him something. And that's where they got the idea of sacrifice. And if they were in terrible trouble, the only valuable person they had to give sacrifice was the king of it all, the tribal chieftain. And so then, if he didn't want to be crucified or to be killed in any way, he could appoint a surrogate, just another one. And his most valuable substitute was his firstborn son, who otherwise would have been the next tribal chieftain. So you just certainly sacrifice him ahead of time. And so when it comes to the way they wrote in the Bible, Jesus was killed by the Romans because he was upsetting a lot of people and getting them all excited and causing trouble. But anyway, he was the only begotten Son of God, which makes him the most valuable person in the world. And they crucified him. So things like that, the thinking in making windows and the ideas in all these, that's why I wrote a book. Because you have to see the book.
Yeah. Why did you go all the way out there? What inspired you to get that place?
I can't remember how I saw it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody took me out to see the oldest house in the county, and I thought it was beautiful. It had a stable that I thought could be a studio, and I just wanted to live there.
So you bought it.
And it was a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this has been wonderful hearing more of this. I'm so glad you took the time.
Well, I enjoy talking with you.
Yeah.
And